My name's Melissa Avera, and I love being a realtor. I specialize in real estate in the DFW and surrounding areas, and I also grew up here, so I'm very familiar with the Metroplex. Buying or selling a home can be an extremely stressful task, so I really try to go the extra mile to take that stress out of my clients' hands.
This is Going the Extra Mile. Now, from Frito Nation Productions in the Caddo Office Reimagined Studios, here's Melissa.
Thanks, Chris. Here with Frito in the Caddo Studios today, and we're going to talk about selling your home in this crazy market that we're in and timing things right to take advantage so you don't miss out on your window of opportunity if selling your house has crossed your mind. So the main things I really want to point out today would be the best time to sell your house. Typically, that would be during the summer months. Normally, the frenzy of real estate where most people move, they start looking kind of mid to late spring, and then they want to make a move in the summer, ideally when their kids are out of school and they have the time to move and get settled. And then once school starts back, which is where we're at right now, things normally start to taper off. And I'm seeing a little bit of that taper off, but again, we are still in such a massive inventory shortage here in the DFW area and honestly nationwide that I don't see it slowing down as far as the bidding wars, the multi-offer, all that, just because there's not enough homes to go around. So my advice to anybody who has, if you've thought about selling your house, I would jump on the bandwagon sooner rather than later. And the reason is we are at the peak right now. I mean, the market has been so hot, and I don't see it going further than really where we are. I mean, some prices, they might increase slightly, but we're eventually going to get to a point, I would say, within the next year and a half to 2 years, where interest rates are going to have to come up. And then once that happens, that will take more buyers out of the market. So there's, less offers, whatnot, and homes will start to sit longer as things shift. So, and the other question I get from a lot of people right now, they want to sell their house, but they know, I've lived here for 25 years and I really haven't done anything to improve the house or improve the value. The kitchen's original, there's still carpet everywhere. Do I need to spend $40,000 making upgrades in order to sell it? And my answer right now is no. You can, and if you spend it wisely, like on kitchens, master bathrooms, those are what sell homes. People will see the value and they will offer you more. But do you have to do that in order to sell your house right now for top dollar? Absolutely not. I mean, I just sold a home in Plano on a street that I grew up on, and it was everything in that house was original, 1970 build. I mean, maybe in appliances or something, dishwashers, things like that were newer, but we sold it as is, and we had 12 offers within 2 days, and all, asking price or more. So it just goes to show that you don't have to spend an arm and a leg to get your house ready to take advantage of these things. And I think that's motivating more people once they realize that they're not having to do all this work and live through a renovation that they really don't want to do anyway. Yeah, so I tell people weigh it. I mean, if you really want to put new flooring in or paint, like the cosmetic stuff, and spend $20,000, $30,000 doing that stuff, you will probably get your return. But if you don't want to live through that renovation and that mess, then don't do it. And we price it accordingly. And honestly, the lower you price things, or if somebody sees that, man, a house in this neighborhood normally doesn't sell below $350, right? And you have your house listed at $335, you're going to drive up some serious interest. You're going to get people in the door. And that's what you want. The more people who come through your door, the more offers you're going to get.
That's a fantastic point right there that I didn't even think about. is that, if you're going to renovate, if you're going to put the new fence up and then turn around and sell the house, you're going to want the money back for that fence. Mm-hmm. It's going to drive that listing price up. And I was going to ask you about how to price a house in a market like this. When you price the house, do you acknowledge that the market is crazy and set the high price, or do you set a price and just let the market take care of itself?
I always, even though right now appraisals and comps almost mean nothing because pretty much all these buyers are signing a full appraisal waiver, which means that it doesn't matter if you have a house listed at $400,000 and the buyer comes in and offers $450,000 and they sign that appraisal waiver. If the appraisal comes back at $375,000, those people are still on the hook for $450,000.
Yeah.
Right. So it's great for sellers. They're making hand over fist money. But to answer your question directly, I price it at fair market value. I think the seller and the listing agent should always be responsible for the list price, meaning what you list it at, you should know it will appraise for that. You should be responsible for that. And then anything over that point is, that's on the buyer or the buyer's agent. And you want to do that for two reasons. I mean, appraisals are taking so long right now to come back. That's delaying things. But if you, in a outside, say, a COVID crazy market, if you list a house for $300,000 and an appraisal comes back in at $250,000, right? Well, most buyers don't have $50,000 cash to just cough up the difference. So the deal is dead, right? They terminate, walk away, or you go on to the next buyer. And nobody wants to keep having to go back on market and then find a new buyer. That makes it stressful. And so that's what I always tell my clients. If you price it competitively, and when I mean competitively, a market value, you're going to get interest. But if you decide, hey, the market's hot, which it is, and I want to be greedy, and they're all selling for $50,000 over what they're listed for, so why won't I just list it at that? Well, then when that appraisal comes in short, because it's probably going to, then we're in this predicament that you really don't want to be in. And I mean, the great thing about our market now is there's so much cash in it that when you're a cash buyer, you don't need the appraisal.
And just because it's listed for $250,000 doesn't mean that there's a limit on how much someone can bid it up.
Absolutely. I mean, there's people easily paying $100,000 more than what homes are listed for, which blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind. But that, in some cases, that's what people are having to do to win the deal. You might as well throw in your firstborn. Yeah. I mean, at that rate. But the point is, I feel like we're at the peak of that right now, and that's been this way now for multiple months. And real estate ebbs and flows. I mean, every decade there's something. The market crash, 12 years ago, and before that, the 90s. I mean, there's always something that's going to affect it, and it's just a long-term game, really. But right now is one of the best times in history, in my opinion, to sell a house and capitalize on it. And I have a lot of people whom, their kids are graduating high school this year or have just graduated, and now they're going off to college, and I don't need the 4,000 square foot home anymore. And honestly, they don't want the upkeep. But their fear is, where are they going to go? I want to sell and line my bank account because my house is paid for, but I don't want to go buy and then have to overpay. I think that is the biggest fear people have. And what they don't know is there are options out there. And I help people with this every day. They're not things that are talked about or even advertised much. You just don't hear rent to own, for example. That's not really a thing in Texas. It's not something that you see advertised. I mean, maybe if it's just an owner of a house, they'll work out a deal with somebody. But as a realtor, that's not something that we really dabble in. But there are companies out there that are like investment company, like groups of investors, and they will literally buy a house for you, all cash, and then all you're committed to is renting it for 1 year. And then they give you the option to buy that house if you want during that year lease you've signed. And it's awesome for some people, like people who want to sell their house, right? And like, okay, I want to build another house, but I know that's going to take a year. I'm going to have to go rent for a year or two. Or people who are, say, new to the Metroplex, and they know they don't want to be in an apartment. They want a house because they have a family or whatever, but they don't know the area enough where they're confident and comfortable to pull the trigger and buy. So it kind of buys them time. It gives them the opportunity to learn the area. But to me, the biggest thing with these companies is if you decide you want to buy that house that you're leasing, you're not in competition.
It's exclusive to you.
Which is a no-brainer in this market. I mean, I would 100% do it. My husband and I just bought our house last fall, and we love it. We're still making improvements to get it how we want. But we've had the conversation, man, we could sell this thing for $150 more than we even paid for it 9 months ago and go rent something and wait until things balance out. And that's what a lot of people are doing. I mean, it's not ideal for a family of 5 to go from a 4,000 square foot home to an apartment. But sometimes financially, that's the smart move. Especially if people have college tuition and weddings or whatever with their kids coming up. I mean, it's nice to be able to make such a profit. And I've helped people right now who, some people have lived in their house 20 plus years. That's where they raise their family. There's others that I've sold it. They haven't even lived there 2 years. And they're banking 6 figures. Easy, which is almost unheard of to own something for 2 years or less and make that much money.
Absolutely.
That's why I feel like it is my duty as a realtor to educate people on the market and make the best financial decision. And selling your home right now is probably one of the better things you're going to be able to do for yourself to set yourself up for financial success.
I want to point something out real quick, and I'm not sure. Well, I know you're not doing it on purpose, and you're listening right now in your car while you're working out. I'm assuming if you're listening to this podcast, you're doing something else too. You may not have realized what Melissa's saying right now, but you have said, I help people. I want to educate people. You don't look at, and you may not even realize it, you don't necessarily look at yourself as a businesswoman who's out to make money. That's going to happen. But you've said it several times over and over again. You're helping people. You're educating people. You really, you serve.
Right.
And
that's why I got into this.
It's very refreshing to hear it put that way. The commission will come, the money will come, and I'm putting words in your mouth, maybe because you don't want to say it, or maybe it's just striking me that you're doing something you love doing. And, the advice old people give young people all the time is find something you love doing and figure out a way to get paid for it. And it seems like you're kind of living that out.
I am. And that's why I did several things, to lead up to this career. And I've always had the interest and the passion. And then once I got in, I never looked back. I wish I would have started this 20 years ago. I personally didn't have the best experience when I bought my first house. And so that motivated me a little bit more to realize people need the guidance. Like, I wish I had that when I was starting. Somebody to rely on, somebody that I knew genuinely was looking out for what is best for me. Was this the best financial decision for me? And I will straight up tell people. I have people who have called me, a couple, some family of mine, they moved down here from Oklahoma, and they bought a house, and they weren't even in it 2 months. And they called me and said, I need you to sell the house.
It was haunted?
And I'm like, it was brand new construction. And I'm like, are you even unpacked? I mean, I thought they were kidding. And I said, no. I'm not going to sell your house, and here's why. Because you are going to be so upside down. You have no equity. You've lived there 2 months. So, no, I don't want you to be in the negative on this. So the smart thing to do is rent it out for a couple of years. I know you might not want to be a landlord. That might not be ideal. But once you build that equity, the market will shift a little, then jump on it. And then that's what they did, but it's just crazy. You don't think somebody's going to buy a house and 2 months later call you and say,
yeah,
need to sell it. But you never know when, like, the dream job or some opportunity that's too good to be true comes up. And that's the other reason, like in this market now where people are having to go the crazy over. I don't want my clients to overpay for something. It's my job to get them the best deal, right? And I've had to try to talk more of my clients out of buying homes because I didn't want them to overpay. And they're like, Melissa, we have the money. This is what we want. And obviously it's proven this is what we're going to have to do to get it. And I'm like, it is. But I just don't want you to call me in a year and ask me to sell it when you're not, like, I know you think it's your forever home. But so you just have to remind people, even though they're buying a house maybe, that you have to think about resale.
Yeah.
And what does that look? It's different for everybody else. Like, what school district is it in? Is it in a good neighborhood? Does it have accessibility to highways? I mean, those are all things. People want convenience nowadays. And, the more convenient things are, the more action you're going to get.
Absolutely.
So.
All right. So, in closing, we're at a peak right now.
Yes.
It's just a matter of how long that peak's going to last.
I think we'll be in this peak for a little bit longer, but the hot months of selling are starting to wind down because it always slows down a little bit in the fall and winter months.
And I think one of the real keys also is that if you're someone who loves the idea of selling their house but doesn't know what's next, there are options that you may not have thought about. Absolutely.
And it's not hard. I will tell you this. A lot of people are reluctant about selling their house because it has to be show ready or it has to always be clean. And it's a pain in the butt if you have kids' toys everywhere or you have to get animals out of the house or, people have all these things. But I'm telling my clients, every client's house I've sold in the last 6 months, I've pretty much told them, I'm going to list your house on a Thursday. Why don't you go out of town for the weekend? Go do something. By Sunday, when you come home, we'll have an executed contract. And that's what's happened every time.
Okay, my last question to you before we close. And I hate doing this because as a journalist or a radio talk show host, you're never supposed to ask a question that you don't have a good idea what the answer is going to be because it's kind of like Russian roulette. But in this market, have you had a client that has listed their house that has regretted it?
No.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought.
Not one. They are all thrilled. I think it's exceeding their expectations. I think they all know that, the market's pretty nuts, but once they see how, once I put their house active on the market, I mean, it's within sometimes 60 seconds or less that I'm getting phone calls from other realtors or people inquiring about, it is just fast. And I try to make it convenient for people. Like I said, go out of town so you're not having to constantly rush to get out at the door. You do a few things just to stage your house to make it look nice and clean. And I always tell people, people open your kitchen cabinets and they're going to look at everything when they're coming through your house. And if they open those and stuff is filled to the brim or cups are falling out, people are going to feel like, they're cramped for space. I'm going to be too.
Yeah.
So you want to be more minimalistic. You know, if it's summertime and you know you're selling your house, take all your winter clothes, all that stuff just out of your closet, pack it. You're not going to need it anyway, and it will make it appear bigger. So there's things you can do that aren't going to cost you money, that's going to save you time in the long run.
All right. We got another episode down in the books.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was fun.
If you have questions about buying, selling, renting, or investing, don't go at it alone. Reach out to Melissa at 214-280-4317 or melissa@melissamovesdfw.com. You can find out more about the Melissa Avera Realty Group at TVG by visiting melissamovesdfw.com. Thank you for listening to Going the Extra Mile.